What is up, guys? This is Luke Hill for Kit Guru, and in this review we're taking a look at a 32GB set of DDR4 memory from a vendor that you perhaps have never heard of or never have experience with. According to the company's online webpage, Goodram and IRDM Pro are memory and storage product brands from Polish company VIII Electronic, and I believe VIII is the correct pronunciation there, but if I'm wrong, correct me in the comments section down below. So with its factory currently located in Poland, VIII Electronic actually started as a distributor in 1991. They then started producing memory products in 2003 before diverging into the gaming market with its Goodram or IRDM brands. Fundamentally, the IRDM Pro by Goodram represents a set of DDR4 memory aiming to look for budget-conscious consumers as the market audience. They're aiming to offer key value without any of the flashy accessories that you typically see on some higher priced memory modules. And to those interested in buying local, this denotes one of the few consumer memory vendors that can highlight stages of production in Europe as one of their unique selling points. With the company introduction and background information highlighted, let's take a closer look at the memory set that we have on show today. Before we do that though, if you like what we do here at Kit Guru, make sure you give us a like and subscribe and follow us on the YouTube channel. It really helps us out. Head on to the Kit Guru webpage, that really supports us also. And watch on, of course. The specific set of memory that we're looking at today is the IRDM Pro by Goodram, and this is in the deep black colour scheme, which I must say looks pretty good in person and certainly is deep as far as deep black goes. The rated speed of the kit is 3600 MHz XMP. The timings are 18, 22, 22, 42, and these are 2x16GB set for 32 gigs of capacity. And as they're 16GB DIMMs, they are actually using dual rank configuration for the memory ICs. And those underlying memory ICs, according to Typhoon Burner, are Hynix ICs, although we couldn't get the exact product line of Hynix memory. Given the push for competitive pricing and strong market position, it comes as basically no surprise that a temperature sensor is not included with the memory modules, but realistically for budget-conscious value buyers, you're probably not going to care how hot your DIMMs are running, provided they're competently cooled, which they will be, especially at that 1.35 volt XMP voltage. In terms of styling, the IRDM Pro by Goodram modules in their deep black colour scheme are very basic to look at. There are different colours available, most notably a hollow white, which does look pretty good, as well as this deep black and some other subtle variations. But as far as bling goes, there's nothing really to look at here. Wrapping around the 8-layer black PCB, you get a sub 1mm thickness heat spreader, which is, like I've already said, deep black in colour. It does make contact with the memory ICs, but given that it's sub 1mm, it's not going to be doing all that much cooling, but it will be perfectly fine. DDR4 memory doesn't really get all that hot at sensible voltage levels. The heat spreader itself actually extends about 2 or 3mm above the bare PCB, making the height of this module about 33 to 34mm tall. One of the key benefits there is that you are not going to get CPU cooler interference here, because they're basically the height of a bare PCB for a DDR4 DIMM. Clearly, there is no room for an extended RGB lighting diffuser or any form of LEDs on board for that matter. And that actually might come as a breath of fresh air to many people who are sick to death with RGB lighting on memory kits and every other component in today's market. In terms of warranty, like we would expect from any memory manufacturer these days, you get a lifetime warranty from Goodram, so that's good to see, and quite frankly, it's really what we expect these days. Basically, I can't remember the last time I saw a memory kit without a lifetime warranty. Pricing is meant to be around about £135 in the UK for our specific IRDM Pro by Goodram memory kit. However, we've yet to see £135 exactly, so if we go onto Amazon, the kit's currently selling for about £143. But the rep that we contacted from Goodram did tell us that the new pricing is meant to be £135, so perhaps we'll see some price drops over the coming weeks. We also got confirmation that coverage in the rest of Europe is particularly strong for Goodram, obviously being a European Polish company, but they do not yet have official distribution in the US, so good luck finding the modules there. Anyway, I think that's enough of a brief overview. Let's jump into the testing. As always, we're testing the memory on our AMD AM4 platform. This is built around the Ryzen 9 5950X processor, overclocked to 4.6 GHz static. We're using an ASUS ROG Crosshair 8 Hero motherboard with the latest BIOS version. We've got a Gigabyte RTX 3080 Eagle OC graphics card for GPU horsepower, and clean juice is delivered by a Seasonic 1kW titanium rated power supply. As you'll see in the charts, we're using comparison test data from our previous review that we just completed, which was a roundup review of 6 different memory kits. The test data is all fresh, so the comparison numbers are perfectly valid. If you want more information on that review, then head on over to the actual video of that. And if you want more information on our test system and our procedures, head on over to the KitGuru webpage, as always. 7-zip compression performance starts out strong, as we've come to expect from 32 gigs of dual-rank DDR4 3600MHz memory on the AMD platform. Goodram's kit sits just above the similarly spec'd Corsair set in terms of compression performance, and resides a little behind the tighter timings 2x16 gig kits. Decompressing performance is also strong, with the preferential dual-rank configuration and 3600MHz clocks resulting in chart-topping performance alongside G-Skill. The differences between the top kits here are tight and within margin of error realistically, but the IRDM Pro is clearly doing well. Blender performance slots in with the other kits at 207 seconds for the classroom render. There isn't much focus on differing RAM performance here. Similar can be said for Cinebench. The Goodram set does technically top our chart by a few points, but when factoring in error margins, it is realistically joint top alongside some other 32GB 3600MHz sets. Memory bandwidth, according to the Sandra test, sits a little behind the tighter latency Kingston kit. Here we see a small preference for the Goodram set thanks to its dual rank configuration versus the Corsair kit with 4 equally spec'd single rank modules. Ada's memory bandwidth test is far more speed and latency biased, as opposed to rank structure bias like with Sandra. As such, the 3600MHz C18 IRDM Pro set performs just off the bottom spot, only sitting above Corsair's modules. We continue to see similarities versus Corsair's 3600MHz C18 kit in Ada's memory latency test. Here, the Goodram sticks roughly match Corsair but sit below the better spec'd memory at preferential AMD CPU memory controller clock speeds. In 3D Mark, Goodram once again sits between Corsair and Kingston 3600MHz kits. The dual rank configuration proves a benefit here over Corsair's alternative. By virtue of a clean game installation as a result of continuous crashing, which is not to do with the memory, I must add, the IRDM Pro kit now sits slightly above our competing data from comparison modules. Realistically, we expect the Goodram kit to offer roughly the same performance as the other dual rank 2x16 3600MHz kits in F1 2020, but because of the aforementioned headaches that we had with the game, not memory related, and the fact that we had to reinstall the actual installation, we are seeing some slight variations here. So take this result with a pinch of salt. Watch Dogs returns the hierarchy to its general trend, with the 2x16GB Goodram IRDM Pro set sitting a little above Corsair's performance and roughly matching the tighter Kingston sticks. Clearly, gaming performance on the 2x16GB DDR4 3600 dual rank Goodram IRDM Pro set of memory is solid indeed. In terms of overclocking, we actually got some reasonable success. Boosting the voltage to 1.45 volts and sticking with XMP timings initially, we actually managed to boost the memory clock up to 4000 MHz. That's a pretty reasonable result, especially if you're on an Intel platform that'll take 4 GHz memory fine, or if you're lucky enough to have an AMD processor that will do 2000 MHz on the fabric clock. Sticking to the preferential 3600 MHz memory clock for the AMD platform, we also looked at tightening the timings. With the RAM voltage still set at 1.45 volts, we managed to squeeze down to 16, 19, 19, 42. So that's pretty reasonable timings tightening if you prefer that 3600 MHz memory clock for the AMD platform. It's always interesting to have experience with a new brand for us, especially in terms of memory where the differences between the vendors can be quite subtle and understated often. And I'd say that our experience with the Goodram IRDM Pro memory modules really does emphasize that point. We see a smartly designed set of memory that targets a competitive price point with logical specifications, and the underlying Hynix ICs run solidly with the 3600MHz 18, 22, 22, 42 XMP setting. No, these are not the tightest timings on the market, but they do run with stellar performance and easy compatibility. In terms of design and styling, the IRDM Pro modules are undeniably basic. You get a thin sheet metal heat spreader that barely extends past the PCBs of the memory module. There are no flashy lights or fancy fins or any particular styling points, but this is absolutely fine to most users, especially those who really don't care for RGB or LED lighting on their memory modules, who would rather just save a little bit of money rather than pay for some of those options. And as we've already highlighted, you get the strong side effect of having a relatively short memory module that is basically not going to give you any interference headaches, even with large oversized A CPU coolers. And that's a very strong positive. If we focus on market competitors, this is where we think Goodram is going to have a few headaches with the IRDM Pro memory modules. Around £135 to £145 in the UK is absolutely fine for a kit of this caliber. However, the likes of Patriot, Corsair, Kingston, Clev, G-Skill, just to name a few, also know that this price point is commensurate of 3600 MHz C18 modules. So they also have competitors at this price point, and that really does give a tough competitive scenario for Goodram. Plus, many of those kits have fancier heat spreader designs or better heat sinks or RGB lighting. And yes, I know you can argue that you might not want RGB lighting, but if you're paying the same price for a module without RGB lighting versus one with RGB lighting that you can turn off, then it's clear which is delivering better value. The question we really have to ask is how many consumers will pick memory from a relatively small vendor like Goodram versus some of the giants such as G-Skill or Corsair or Kingston at a similar price point? And that question remains potent even if the Goodram modules do perform very well as shown in our testing and probably identically to some of the other kits that they will be competing with. Of course, that's something for you to debate in the comment section down below, and it very much does come down to individual preference. Plus, in the 2021-2022 PC component market, it also comes down very heavily to what you can actually buy in your country. If we summarize then, the IRDM Pro by Goodram is a set of DDR4 memory that we tested and offers reasonable specifications for the price point, is wisely basic in terms of styling, and presents a worry-free heat spreader design to those with big air coolers. Pricing and performance are absolutely fine, but there is plenty of competition from the big hitters in this market segment, such as Corsair, G-Skill, Kingston. So Goodram is clearly going to have a tough battle on its hand, but we'll have to see how that one plays out, because in isolation, the memory modules are perfectly fine. I've been Luke Hill for Kit Guru. Thank you for watching our video review of the IRDM Pro by Goodram memory modules. As always, let us know what you think in the comment section down below. Are you quite impressed to see a relatively lesser known vendor offering performance comparable to some of the big guns? Or do you think the price point is probably a little bit tough to stomach when you could get, say, Corsair or Kingston or some of the other modules for pretty much the same or sometimes slightly cheaper? If you like this video, give us a like and subscribe. Help us on the Kit Guru YouTube channel. That really does support us. Head on over to the Kit Guru webpage to support us even more. Check out Patreon, Discord, social media, all that type of stuff. Buy a cool t-shirt like this one. Check back for our next review.